Welcome back everybody to another MOTOBOB video at EICMA in Milan. Now we're at the Suzuki stand again. We were here yesterday to see the new GSX ATAR sports bike, the middleweight 800. But the other big announcement for this week is the GSX-S1000GX. It's a more touring-focused version of the S1000 Naked and S1000 GT Sports Tourer. Now I think this looks really quite good, and so in this video we'll go through all of the details with the 9 key things that you need to know. So the idea with this bike is to turn that lower slung GT model into more of a crossover tourer, a little bit like a Yamaha Tracer 9 or a BMW S1000 XR. As such, you get longer suspension, so it's 130mm of travel on the GT, but this one gets 150mm. Now, of course, that's going to give it a little bit more capability in terms of, soaking up bumps. I wouldn't say you'd ever think about taking this bike off-road, but perhaps a bit more comfort on less well-surfaced tarmac. And on top of that, it also naturally lifts the seat height. So this is 845mm in the seat as opposed to the 810 of the GT. Ergonomically, on top of that seat height change, they've also revised the bar position. So it's 55mm closer to the rider, 50mm wider, I think, as well, the bar, and also the grips are 14mm wider as well, so lots more space, a little more leverage. That's going to give you easier turning, but also it's got you sat a little bit more upright than you would be on the GT model, and over distance that's going to reduce the chances of backache and stuff like that. Like I say, much more touring and distance focused. The other thing that this bike has got, I'm not sure if the GT has it, is rubber mounted bars. So the idea is that it keeps the vibes from the engine down to limit, that vibes through the grips, which can become a bit annoying if you're at a constant speed on the motorway. It'd sound like it'd make the bars super wobbly, but as you can see, they only move a little bit, so it doesn't really detract from the handling, but certainly adds to the comfort. And also you've got a little bit more space down to the pegs, so 15mm more between the seat and the foot pegs. Opens up the knee angle a bit. That's another common sort of pain point if you're in the saddle for hours on end, is a tight knee angle is going to give you a bit of pain there. So yeah, generally feels really quite comfortable. And also they say they've wind tunnel tested this screen to give optimal wind protection. It is adjustable with 3 steps between 50mm of range, and these handguards are standard fit. So if you're in colder weather, they really can contribute to warmer hands, because that wind blast on your knuckles really does give you a chill. Now also, interestingly, not only is the suspension longer, but this is a first for Suzuki that it's electronically adjustable and also semi-active. So electronic adjustment is super convenient for a tourer, because naturally you don't have to get off and get tools out to make tweaks. You can do it all through the switch gear and dash, but the semi-active nature means that it's constantly adjusting to suit the riding environment and conditions and riding style, and that gives it a real versatility, which is exactly what you want from a touring bike. You might want comfort, cruising at a steady speed on the motorway, but then as soon as you start to accelerate and decelerate harder on a sort of twisty road, you might want it to firm up and give you more of that sporty ride. Thing is, you might expect, with it being their first Suzuki, that it'll be a, rudimentary system, but it doesn't seem to be the case. It optimizes the damping 1,000 times per second, and it's got a lot of features that you'll see on other bikes that have been doing the semi-active stuff for quite some time. One is their Suzuki floating ride control, which I think sounds similar to the Skyhook tech that you'll get from Showa, and I think Kawasaki use it and Ducati use it. The idea is the bike is suspended from a hook in the sky. It keeps the chassis of the bike level, but allows the wheels and suspension to move to soak up the road surface. So the bike is constantly moving straight, but the wheels go up and down. That's the idea and what it tries to achieve. And in my experience on stuff like the Multistrada V4, it's really impressive in terms of the poise of the bike, regardless of the conditions. It's got automatic preload as well, so it'll self-level whether you've got a passenger or luggage. Suzuki deceleration damping control, which is effectively, an anti-dive feature. So if you brake hard, it'll firm up the fork to stop it lurching forward too much. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the technical documentation that really does sound good. So I'm really looking forward to trying this out on the road to see if it does have that, proper touring all-round ability. Styling-wise, of course, it does look a little bit different to the other bikes in the lineup. There's a lot in common. It does look a bit like a jacked-up GT, but I quite like that big silver panel on the bodywork. It breaks it up a little bit, and you've also got some slightly different color choices. I mean, the blue and the black over there are very common for Suzuki, and you know what you're getting. But what I do like is that sort of military or khaki green that we were just looking at that gives it a little bit more of an adventure bike feel, and I think it might be the best looking of the bunch. Not textbook Suzuki, but yeah, I think that might be my pick, and it does have red Brembos on, which give it a little bit of a pop and look quite nice. Although I'm not sure if they're standard fit on that bike. That might be a kind of sports brake accessory upgrade. But before we get on to the next feature, a massive thanks to our sponsors this week, Metzeler Tyres and Insta360. Now, we use the X3 camera. It's been brilliant at the show for getting those big wide angle shots, showing all the stands here. It's a massive show, so you need a big wide angle lens. But also back home, we use these on the bike to capture all of our riding footage. They've been an absolute game changer because you can just stick it anywhere on the bike. Doesn't really matter about how it's framed or whether it's level, because after the ride, you can stick it in the Insta360 app or their excellent desktop editing software. And from there, you can take a view all around and choose how you frame it and make sure it's level and choose landscape or portrait. So it really is super flexible, easy to shoot with. Anyone can do it. You don't have to be a professional like myself. And yeah, I just love using it. It's really creative. I take it on all my rides, even if I'm not working, because I like just getting new angles and new shots. So do check out the link down in the description below if you want to get yours. And also down there, you'll find a code which will give you a free gift with every X3 purchase. So once again, a massive thanks to Insta360 for their support. And with that, back to the bike. As for the rest of the bike, well, yes, it does carry over a lot of stuff from the Naked and the GT. So it's the same inline 4, 999 cc's. It makes 150 horsepower, which is pretty punchy. That's up at 11,000 RPM, and then you've got 106 newton meters of peak torque at 9,250. And what I remember from riding both the S1000 and S1000 GT is that it's super smooth, but also delivers lots of mid-range and torquiness, and it's just such a nice engine to ride. Really pleasant, but also I think surprisingly quick as well. It really can get a shift on. And 150 horsepower to me sounds pretty good for a touring bike, because you might have luggage and a passenger, you know, quite a lot of load on the bike. And so if you want to do those quick motorway overtakes, drop down a gear, get it singing, this thing should have plenty of shove for that kind of work. On fuel, I'm not sure it's, you know, necessarily the best compared to some of the other competition, but you do get a decent 19-litre fuel tank, so that should give you enough range to do a decent mileage between stops. As for the brakes, well, we got these 4-pot radially mounted Brembos up front, fairly big 310mm discs, and like I say, my experience of riding this bike, the braking was absolutely up to the job. And then on the wheels, you've got 17 inches front and rear. I guess on a more adventure style touring bike, you might get a big front, but this is road focused, so 17 inches, nice and nimble, a 120/70 tire on the front from Dunlop, and then a big fat 190/50 at the rear for a bit of a sporty look. On the tech front, we've got loads of features on this bike. On top of that semi-active suspension I was just talking about, a nice big TFT display, full color, and I really like the way that Suzuki lay out and design their dashes. It looks quite cool, but also very usable. Now you've got 3 riding modes, A, B, and C. That seems like a real coincidence because they've given them names: Active, Basic, and Comfort, and each of these affects the level of power, the level of traction control intervention, but also the suspension settings as well. Then you've got an up and down quick shifter as standard. You've got cruise control as well, which is an absolute must for a touring bike like this. There's their easy start system, which is just one push on the starter button to get the engine to fire up, and also their low RPM assist, which gives it a little bit of a boost in the low revs to help you stop stalling the bike. Then there's a USB port to keep your devices charged up, and also phone connectivity, so you can hook it up with the Suzuki app and get calls and media and also navigation prompts on the dash. And finally, LED lighting all round, and it's got a very distinctive look to the headlights at the front. Let me know what you think of it though down in the comments. I think it's one of those headlight designs that either people are fine with or not so much, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. As for the price, well, you know, hats off to Suzuki for actually announcing it, because quite often bikes are announced at EICMA with no price, and it's the most important piece of context to judge whether a bike looks like a good deal or not. £14,499 for this bike, which, I mean, the main competition is going to be the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT. That offers semi-active suspension as well and a lot of touring spec. That's £13,110, so it is quite a bit more for this bike, but spec-wise and features-wise, and also it's got 30 horsepower more, you know, this thing looks a little better appointed, so it could well be worth it, but we'll have to reserve judgment until we get to ride one. I'll try and get hold of one of these ASAP because I think it looks really quite good. As always though, let me know what you think down in the comments below. We love reading your comments. Do hit up our EICMA playlist, which is on the screen now as well. We'll put all of of the bikes from this week on there, and there's plenty to look at, so do try and keep up to date with that. If you're not subscribed, then do hit the subscribe button to see each video as soon as it goes live. Many thanks for watching. We'll see you in an hour or so.